It's strange, isn't it, how people can forget an entire place. Not just what it looked like or how it felt, but that it ever even existed. Before you decide whether this story is real, let me tell you this much. I used to work in a building that had 5 floors. Today it only has 4. At least that's what everyone insists. The memory started returning to me last month, like light flickering through a crack in a door you thought was sealed shut. For context, I'm a 31-year-old maintenance technician. Nothing glamorous. My job was to fix things no one cared about until they stopped working. 2 years ago, I was assigned to an office complex downtown on the corner of Beaver and 9th. Half the tenants were government contractors, the rest start UPS with vague names and no outward products. It was the kind of building that looked perpetually half-abandoned no matter how many cars were in the lot. When I first started, they gave me an old ring of worn steel keys and a laminated floor map, levels 1 through 5 plus the basement. The manager, Mr. Havel, told me the 5th floor had been closed for health safety reasons. But he didn't elaborate. I didn't need to know. My orders stopped at the 4th floor anyway. Still, every time I did my walkthroughs, I'd catch flickering lights above the 4th floor ceiling vents, the faint smell of ozone, a hum of electricity that seemed lower than any other circuit in the building. I even joked once that the building's ghosts must pay rent up there. Havel didn't laugh. He just said, "There is no 5th floor, Dan," and walked away. He said it as if reciting a password. That sentence wouldn't start haunting me until much later. One afternoon, I was replacing worn carpet on the 3rd floor when the elevator doors opened behind me. Empty car. Shouldn't have arrived uncalled. I leaned in. The panel lights blinked floor numbers, but instead of LB1234, I saw an extra slot glowing faintly between 4 and the top 5. At first I thought it was a reflection, so I pressed it. The elevator chimed, doors closed, and before I could cancel, up I went. Smooth ride at first, then a subtle jolt like dropping half an inch onto a cushion of air. The digital screen above the door flickered. 5. When the doors slid open, I was staring down a hallway that shouldn't exist. Everything was muted, as if dust hung in every beam of light but refused to settle. The wallpaper looked new but colorless, and the floor was padded with thick gray carpet that muffled every step. I recognized the furniture style used on lower floors, yet every desk was perfectly aligned against the walls. Nothing personal, no nameplates, no wires trailing to outlets. The air smelled faintly metallic, like old coins pressed against skin. I called out a half-hearted maintenance. More for my nerves than any expectation of reply. Nothing stirred. Down the corridor, an emergency exit sign glowed the only color in sight, dull red. Beneath it, a glass door led to a conference room. On a table inside sat 3 identical black binders, evenly spaced, open to blank pages. Each one had a name embossed on the spine. The first said, Phase 1, the second Phase 2, and the third was blank. I flipped a page of Phase 1. It was empty except for a printed line centered near the top. Subject successfully relocated. Memory index reset. A current crawled up my spine. I took a picture with my phone, which froze, screen turning white before rebooting itself. When it restarted, the photo gallery showed nothing. Not even the last image I'd taken that morning. That's when I heard the elevator doors close behind me. I ran back, tapping the button frantically. The panels refused to light. Somewhere behind the walls, I thought I heard muffled footsteps, deliberate and slow. I tried the stairwell. The handle resisted as though magnetized shut. Then a voice, a man's, came faintly through the vent above me. "You shouldn't see this yet." There was no echo, only that. Then the ceiling lights dimmed themselves in sequence away from me, one after the other, like a rolling blackout traveling down the corridor. I bolted back to the elevator, hammered every button, and finally the door opened again with a single polite chime. I stepped in, slammed the one, and kept my eyes fixed on the seam. The ride down lasted far longer than it should have. At one point the floor numbers cycled backward, 5 to 4, 3 to 2, 1, then up again as if the car couldn't decide where I belonged. When the doors parted, the lobby looked utterly ordinary. Same receptionist, Same dull fountain babbling near the mail slots. I stumbled over, trying to sound casual but breathless, asking the receptionist if she'd ever been to the 5th floor. She frowned. "Sir, this building only has 4. She even turned to glance at the directory plaque behind her as proof. Sure enough, the metal strip with 5 was gone. Screw holes soldered over. That night at home, I opened the printed map I'd been issued. The 2 ended at 4. I thought I'd gone insane until I remembered taking a photo of the original version on my first day, purely out of paranoia of losing important paperwork. I scrolled back, hands trembling. There it was, a clear 5F label right above conference rooms D7 through D9. Before I could screenshot it, the image vanished from my phone. Blank white square. My phone buzzed an alert moments later. Storage corrupted. Rebooting. I barely slept. The next morning, when I returned to the building, Havel was waiting in the lobby. "Rough day?" he asked like he already knew. I lied, said my phone had glitched and my elevator keycard was jammed. He gave that chilly micro-smile that never reached his eyes. "Elevators misbehave sometimes," he said. "They remember old routes. Best not to explore." When I tried afterward, the elevator panel had no 5. Instead, between 4 and the ceiling, there was a faint seam where a button might have been sanded down. For the next few months, I forced myself to ignore that it ever happened. Then one evening, around closing, I saw a man in a gray uniform coming out of the lobby elevator carrying a mop bucket identical to mine. I gave him a nod and muttered that I didn't know we had night shift maintenance anymore. He looked at me, or through me, and said, "We've always had night shift." When I blinked, he was walking toward the stairwell. I followed, but the door shut and locked behind him. From the seam, light flickered, dim, cold, humming like a fluorescent bulb right before it dies. That's when realization hit me. The 5th floor hadn't disappeared. It had been erased and something or someone was still keeping it running. I decided to prove, if only to myself, that I hadn't hallucinated. The next morning, I brought a small GoPro and a portable voltage meter, the tools of a man desperate to justify terror with data. When I arrived, the lobby had an unfamiliar guard stationed near the elevators. He was older, polite, unreadable. His nameplate simply read M. Crane. I hadn't seen him before. "You with maintenance?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, showing my ID pass. "4th floor lights again." He nodded slowly and said something that didn't match the moment. "If the lights flicker, it means they're looking." I didn't ask who they were. He stepped aside, letting me through. I rode up, alone. The metallic odor returned faintly around the 3rd floor, exactly where it had begun during my first visit. On 4, the car stopped. No one entered. As the doors started to close, I slipped a screwdriver tip into the crack, then pressed the space above the 4, where that missing button had been. Nothing at first. Then a tone, subtle, hollow. The panel flickered blue, and the elevator jerked once. When it opened, the air shimmered like heat distortion, though the temperature felt cold. 5th floor again, unchanged, but alive in the way a body might twitch in its sleep. The GoPro's timer started on its own. I hadn't pressed record. I tested the voltage in a wall socket. It measured negative 12 volts. Impossible. Electricity doesn't flow like that. At the far end of the hall, the same conference room glowed with that dull red exit sign. Something new waited inside. One more black binder, labeled Phase 3. I reached for it and froze. The last time I'd flipped one open, systems had died. Yet curiosity slices deeper than fear. The contents of Phase 3 consisted of typed names, dozens of them, each followed by the word cleared. Mine was the last entry, still half-typed, Daniel H. Ward CL. No period. No date. No signature. Footsteps behind me. I turned, the janitor in gray, head tipped downward as though staring at the carpet. He carried no bucket this time. "I didn't mean to come back," I blurted out. He lifted his eyes. They were the same color as the wallpaper, gray upon gray, almost translucent. "No one means to. Memory pulls you up when the system slips." "What system?" I demanded. He gestured softly around us. The filtration. They remove the noise. Outside, down the hall, light fixtures began blinking in sequence. Approaching. Each pulse made the shadows shiver away from walls, like silhouettes retreating. "I think you should leave," he whispered, "before it closes again." I ran. The elevator doors were already half shut, but the janitor caught them with one hand. "Next time," he said, "don't answer if they call your name." He pushed me inside, pressed down, and the world dissolved into static. When I came to, I was standing in front of the main entrance on the street, mid-afternoon sun slicing across the glass facade. The building looked cleaner, newer, and a banner overhead boasted its rebrand. Havnet Incorporated, same management name rearranged. My GoPro still ran, clock flashing 12 minutes and 58 seconds. But the screen was white noise. Inside the footage file, no image. Only distorted whispers that, when slowed, repeated three distinct words: floor, found, forgotten. I walked back inside determined to confront someone. Anyone. The receptionist wasn't there. No badge scanner, no security desk, just marble, empty and echoing. Behind me, Crane's reflection appeared in the glass, his uniform immaculate. "They finished it this time," he said calmly. "Don't let them see you remembering." I spun around. He was gone. Everything after that unfolds like dream logic. My landlord called that night to ask when I was planning to return the apartment keys. Apparently, I'd submitted a notice of departure 2 weeks ago. Rent through the end of the month already paid. The signature on the form was mine. Over the next few days, I saw 5th floor erased from everything. Emails I'd written referencing it came back empty. Old coworkers didn't recall Mr. Havel or me ever working at Beaver in 9th. One even laughed and said, "There isn't a building on that corner. It burned down years ago." I went to check, expecting ruins. But the building stood there, glass shining, its brand logo unmarred by any history of fire. My phone camera captured nothing but sky where the structure should have been. That night, tired of gaslighting myself, I printed the corrupted photo from my work computer. Faint outlines of stairwells appeared if you tilted the paper under light. At the top edge, in what looked like pen marks but printed gray, someone had written, "We are still on 5. I didn't sleep. The next morning, an email arrived from an unknown address. Phase 3 at memindex.org subject line. Incomplete clearance. No text except an attached PDF. Scanned maintenance log entries with timestamps matching my elevator incident. Each marked, system realignment successful. The last line read, residual host retained volatile recall. Host. That had to mean me. Around noon someone knocked at my apartment door. 3 soft raps. Through the peephole stood Crane, but without his uniform. He looked ordinary, in a brown jacket, holding an envelope. When I opened the door, he handed it to me. "You were supposed to forget," he said. "Don't make them remind you." Inside the envelope, a single keycard, black matte plastic, embossed with silver digits. 5F. He turned to leave. I grabbed his arm, demanded answers. He only said, "Everyone who remembers ends up replacing someone who didn't." Then he walked away into the daylight that swallowed him like fog. For hours I sat staring at the card. Part of me wanted to destroy it. Part of me needed to know what still waited. Memory has gravity, it drags you back toward danger disguised as closure. That evening I drove downtown again. Sunset flared orange through the streets, turning the building windows to rows of dying embers. I parked, stepped out, and saw reflections ripple across its mirrored facade like water disturbed by unseen hands. As I approached, the automatic doors parted without resistance. Inside, elevator lights already glowed as if sensing my arrival. The car was open, humming softly. On the panel, the 5th floor button shone faint blue again, as if never removed. The black keycard in my hand warmed instantly. The car recognized it. The doors sealed, and the hum deepened to a throbbing vibration that filled my chest cavity like a second heartbeat. As the numbers climbed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sound outside muted completely. No hum, no world, no wait. When the doors opened, This time the hallway was flooded with warm yellow light, and for a fleeting second I believed the nightmare over. The silence smelled sterile, hospital clean. But every door lining the corridor stood slightly open, revealing empty offices, each containing one chair facing the wall, and each wall muraled with black marker handwriting. Lists of names and departure dates that stopped mid-word, mid-letter. My own name was creeping across one wall in real time, the ink tracing itself letter by letter as if invisible fingers pressed the marker from within. I whispered, "What are you?" The answer emerged through the intercom above. Continuity. I turned to run. Behind every glass panel, figures were standing now. Silhouettes human-shaped but featureless, like reflections still deciding who to mimic. The elevator doors at the far end slid open without my touch. I sprinted toward them, heart seizing up in panic, and slammed the panel for L. The last thing I saw before the doors sealed was my own reflection watching me from the hallway, a half beat out of sync. The elevator dropped too fast, weight hammering my legs. Lights blurred, numbers rolling backward faster than physics allowed. Then everything stopped. No jolt, no motion, just the heavy pause of machinery holding its breath. When the doors parted, the lobby was wrong. The fountain was silent, the air thick with a faint hum that vibrated inside my teeth. Floor directory, gone. No desk, no receptionist. And outside the glass, night pressed against the windows though it should have been noon. I stepped out. My reflection in the dark glass wasn't matching me. It lagged, a half-second behind, then smiled on its own. As I backed away, the lights overhead flickered in long waves that rippled toward the street exit. The reflection raised a hand and traced numbers on the inside of the glass. 5555. I ran for the doors locked. My pass wouldn't scan. The reflection mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I caught the shape of it. Stay. Somewhere deeper in the building, machinery started whirring. Compressors, pumps, systems waking after years. My phone lit with a single notification from the same ghost address. Phase 4 initiated. Then every other message, every photo, dissolved into static icons. I shouted uselessly. My voice bounced off marble like soft cloth. Then the elevator chimed again behind me. I turned. Its panel now glowed with new numbers above 5, 6, and 7. Whatever logic governed this place no longer belonged to architecture. It was rewriting itself. A whisper rose through the vents. The janitor's voice, the same calm tone that had once warned me. "They need you to finish remembering," it said. "That's how the floor stays built." I looked toward the elevator. Inside stood 3 silhouettes, maybe human, maybe echoes, each one blurred slightly at the edges, and all faced forward like passengers waiting for me to decide. Behind them, walls shimmered with those moving lists of names, thousands now. I understood then what Crane meant about replacement. The system didn't erase you. It copied what it needed to rebuild itself. Memory as scaffolding. Consciousness recycled into concrete. I could feel the building waiting. There wasn't fear left, only a kind of pressure at the base of my skull, urging surrender. My hand lifted the keycard on its own, a reflex deeper than obedience. Its surface pulsed once with light, tiny and mournful. Before sliding it into the reader, I looked around one last time. Every glass reflection of me stood silent in unison, lips parted like they wanted to speak. When the card clicked home, the hum behind the walls stopped. Utter silence, whole and final. The elevator doors opened. Inside, only darkness. A wind issued from it, warm and gentle, carrying a whisper made of 100 voices, all saying the same thing. "You remembered the 5th floor. Thank you." The sound faded into stillness, and from somewhere impossibly far below or above, I felt the building take a long, satisfied breath. If you ever find yourself inside a place that swears it only has 4 floors, don't press the empty space above the last button. Because somewhere, something is counting on you to remember what everyone else forgot.